My name is Olivia Haynes, and I'm the co-director of the Ruben Mark Initiative for Organizational Character and Leadership, as well as the director of the Bernstein Center for Leadership and Ethics. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all to our workshop on finding your purpose through work. It's the last workshop of the academic year, offered as part of our leadership development series under the auspices of the Mark Initiative for Organizational Character and Leadership. This workshop is being facilitated by an amazing alumna, Nell Derick Debevoise, who is the CEO and co-founder of the Purposeful Growth Institute, as well as a partner at Purpose Feed. I have worked with Nell for many years. And alums in attendance across both the B School and the law school, because it really does help you reset and refocus your attention on your personal impact across your everyday lives, whether that be personal or professional. This is why we're also really thrilled to partner with Expo to present this workshop. And with Nell with her purposeful framework. So we're going to get started with a brief intro and then I'll hand it right over to her. Nell is a lifelong learner who has focused her studies on the intersection of adult learning, innovation strategy, intercultural education, and org psych. As I mentioned, she's an amazing alum of the EMBA Global program. And since her time here at CBS, she has really grown her sphere of influence and founded numerous organizations which seek to wrangle people and ideas to make work healthier and fairer for all. She has a noteworthy column in Forbes, which you can definitely start signing up for, on the future of work and purpose. And she has a forthcoming book, which is about to hit stores next month, sharing this framework, which we will be offering you all today. So with that, thank you, Nell, for being here, and I'll let you take the virtual floor.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Thank you, Shirley. So glad to be here. Thank you, students and alums, for showing up in a busy Monday lunch slot as the term winds down on campus and everything happens for the rest of you in your lives. It is really powerful to just take time out for this. So congratulations and thank you for that. Just a word to start, the title is very intentional. It really is about purpose for performance, right? So this isn't kind of like, oh, we heard the students like to think about purpose, or it helps our admission numbers, or it helps our alumni giving. It's very trendy. It really is about connecting to our purpose because it helps our performance as individuals, which, you know, connects to job search that many of you might be going through now, or job transition, or just thriving in the role you're in. It is helpful for organizations when individual people are connected to their purpose because it facilitates trust, which is good for efficiency, collaboration, resiliency, which is very topical in this current market. And finally, it is good for the world, right? When I always say very few of us want to burn more carbon than we need to, or be misogynistic jerks. It's just that the world and some of the systems in which we live and move and work have gotten a bit angled that way. And so when we connect to how we want to leave the world behind for our future grandchildren or our dogs and their progeny or whoever we might be thinking about, it is good for the world. It tends to have better outcomes for social, environmental, and governance factors. So that's why we're doing this. The most simple version might be just a reason to get up in the morning. Maybe this Monday you felt a little bit like this at the end of a busy semester on a chilly spring day, right? Whatever you're facing in your Monday. And so boiled down to its most simple, having purpose is a reason to get up in the morning, which is partially why it's good for our health, right? Because literally it gives us a reason to stay healthy and fit and get up tomorrow. This is a favorite quote, and I think a really healthy thing for job seekers to remember, especially as, you know, students, you're kind of wrapping up the CBS experience and moving on. There's so much getting pushed at you of what the world needs of you or wants of you in the form of fancy recruiters, in the form of media narratives, maybe in the form of some parental messaging that you're getting. But I think it's super important to really connect to what makes you come alive, because if you've ever worked with leaders who are alive and fully themselves, you will know the power of that. And so to be that is way more powerful than to go to the right post-MBA job, according to your uncle or Goldman's recruiter or whoever else you might be talking to. So just quickly, as I get into a little more of the intro and content, but I would love to hear in the chat, what's your affiliation? Are you a student? Or I know there are some fellow alums, hi Antoinette, fellow SLEB board member from my days. If you can turn on your video, as Olivia said, that would be awesome. But if you can't, if you're at work, I get it. But yeah, hi Lindsay from EMBA, great. Wow, that's a very dedicated journey. Eating lunch, bon appetit, no apology necessary, totally fair. And I got, thanks to Shirley, I got the surveys that you submitted. If there's anything that's topical today in terms of questions you're hoping to hear the answers to, or wonderings about purpose, feel free to drop that in. Oh, cool, James, great to have a dual role person here. Hello, Antoinette. Cool, so keep those coming. Again, as questions arise, don't hesitate to drop those in. I'll touch base every now and then in the chat. So briefly for today, we're in the midst of this opening, and I'll share objectives, some research and frameworks. I've been doing this kind of work with your kind of people for, gosh, 12 or 13 years now. We had our first class of MBA fellows in 2014, and the book and these tools that I'll share with you today is all taken from that work. So Laura, you're in good company. I have done a lot with MBAs approaching their first summer and thinking about career beyond that. And then we'll spend a little bit of time in small groups, really thinking about how this applies. I know sometimes it can be hopeful to just kind of eat lunch and creep on a webinar and be enlightened by brilliance. I hope I have some brilliance to offer, but I'm also a learning psychologist and a pedagogist. And I know that if I just spew brilliance for 45 minutes or whatever we have left, it actually won't be likely to work that well in terms of changing your mind or helping you with anything you're looking for help with. To do that, you actually need to engage a little bit. So it'll be painless. You'll get to meet some other buddies, other alums, other students, Columbia staff and leaders, but I will ask you to get into breakouts. Again, if you purely can't speak up, just maybe chat into your group that and you can creep there, but would be really awesome and really good for you and your learning and what you came to get out of today if you can participate in those groups for about 10 or 15 minutes, about 1 o'clock. And finally, we'll close with questions that have come up for you, a few offers and next steps to go on and continue with this work. So that's where we're headed. Very briefly, the objectives that we designed with the Reuben Marks Center and the SLEB leadership is to really learn some data, anecdotal support for the fact that purpose drives performance. Knowing that you all are MBAs, right? We're coming from a fairly analytical angle on all of this, and so want to start there. The second piece is to understand the connection between the really mundane day-to-day, because make no mistake, and the alums here or the Columbia staff can probably share, that as students, when you head back out into the real world and are working again, or for you EMBAs who are still working, no magic switch gets flipped, right? It's not about like one day you wake up and all day from morning to night, you're walking in purposeful, impactful actions every moment of the day, right? Actually, you're waking up, you're making breakfast for you or whatever family you're supporting, you're somehow getting to work, whether that's opening a Zoom screen or getting on the subway, you're in meetings, probably more meetings than you would like, you're in Excel, right? Like these are all still the fabric of our lives. It's just the context and the way we make meaning, which I'll talk about in a minute, that changes. So what we're here to do today is not reveal some secret door that's been closed to you, behind which there's this purposeful work. It's just about how you can make sense of what you're already doing and will continue to do in a way that is purposeful. And finally, again, we have this very cool tool that is coming out in greater detail in the book that I'll introduce today. It's actually really simple and pretty intuitive, but just a useful framework in our experience for people like you who are looking to find purpose in a business career. That's where we're headed. Again, some highlights from the survey, which were so helpful to hear. This idea of a framework came up a lot. So you're in the right place. That's exactly how I like to think about this stuff. Secondly, actionable steps. Again, amen. This is not about kind of a thought exercise or coming up with some purpose slogan to print on your coffee mug to take to work tomorrow. It's really about the action. And then finally, this idea of, being on a job search, whether that's as a first year, a second year, an alum, just ongoing, or whether that's, as Columbia staff helping to navigate job searches, but really how to get at that. And so I think this tool will indeed help with that. If questions remain at the end, please ask again, push me on that. The final piece I'll just say is that this work has never been more important than now. Between the markets, and I'm sure for students or other job seekers, it might feel a little bit shaky right now to be headed out into the job market in maybe a recession coming or here or not, who knows? And just the general tumult, right? Obviously, you've heard that more than you probably would like in the last 3 years. But it's real. We are all going through such massive transition and shift in how we work, what we do at work, who we work with, and what that looks like. And so it's really jiggly, right? We're still very VUCA, which is an older term these days, but still very real, volatile, uncertain, chaotic, and a lot of crises going on. That's still very real. So having a North Star or that reason to get up in the morning, even when you feel like a sleepy cat, is really important right now. So again, kudos to you for taking the hour out. Please be as present for this time as we can. And the recording will be shared after if you need a rewatch or if you want to share it with other CBS friends. But to that note, I'm just going to flash a brain up here for any of you who are neuroscience nerds or have that in your background, and as evidence to do a very quick and painless grounding, because you will get a lot more out of the balance of our 45 minutes together if you are able to come to just a bit of presence in your mind and open for learning. So I'm going to stop my share so you're not obsessed with neurology terms, refresh, and just ask everyone to try to close windows, try to put cell phone down, and come to presence. Maybe a little shoulder roll or just an arm jiggle, do whatever you need to get out of the Monday grit that you might already be feeling, and then come to stillness. Feel your feet on the ground beneath you, your butt in whatever seat you're in. And make sure you're breathing deeply. Studies show we breathe about 80% more shallowly when we're looking at some kind of a screen. Breathing gives us oxygen. Oxygen is needed to power the brain. So close your eyes and look away for the screen for a quick 60-second break. And then super simply, I just want you to think of one tiny little specific thing for which you are grateful. Could be a bird that you hear outside your window above the city noise. Could be a delicious breakfast that you had. A meeting getting canceled, freeing up some time. A laugh over the weekend. A gesture that someone made to you or help that they offered. Just one little teeny thing. Just the fact that you're here and well enough to breathe is maybe your thing. Might be tempting to make a list, but zero in on one specific thing and just hold it in mind as you take 3 deep breaths. slowly as you're ready, you can open your eyes back up and come back to the group. Nothing new under the sun. I bet that wasn't the first time you heard that gratitude or breathing is helpful. But hopefully you can tune in and feel in your body how it just has cleared a little bit of the Monday chaos that I live with, at least. Maybe not all of us. And we'll dive in. So this is that kind of cycle that I alluded to, right? That I am not going to reveal to you a list of 22 new activities that you can start doing that will all of a sudden make you purposeful. When you go back to life in 45 minutes or tomorrow, or when you start that next full-time job, you will be doing the same things that you've always done. You'll be doing them a bit better with some more technical information, with the knowledge of the MBA, right? With all of those things, of course, and that's real growth and learning. But the secret of purpose is this cycle, which is doing things that have impact, right? Whether that's making a certain thing for breakfast, or leading a meeting in a certain way, or mentoring a colleague, or negotiating a deal, or designing a strategy, or writing an email, right? Literally all of the things we do in life and work have some effect. If we want to be purposeful, we want to get them to have a positive effect on some one single human or a group of people or some piece of the planet, right? Or whatever that is. We want to have a positive effect. So we could just do that and move on next, and get through our to-do list in as positive a way as possible. But what we can do instead is take a nanosecond or 2 minutes at the end of the day or 60 seconds to breathe that we just did and actually consider why sending that email in a certain tone versus another tone is meaningful to us. How does that connect to the person that we want to be, to the purpose that we're here to practice in the world, right? What does it mean to make ourselves or our family a breakfast that is from farmer's market fruit and a small farmer's yogurt rather than Fruit Loops, for all that that means in terms of sugar content, in terms of the agricultural stream in this country, right? All of those choices could be made to have meaning. And that's when we can start laddering them up and connecting them to this broader purpose. Because otherwise, when we talk about purpose, it can feel abstract, it can feel sort of vague, airy-fairy, not very action-oriented, and even really intimidating. I think a lot of people that I've worked with in similar profiles to yourselves feel purpose pressure, right? We want to end global warming. We want to fix racism at our company or the pay gap between genders and races in our country or at our company. Those are massive things, super worth addressing, but actually they're changed in those single decisions, right? What questions are we asking about the salary structure and transparency at our company? What ways are we buying from minority-owned or local businesses that tend to do more towards rectifying the wealth gap between genders and races, right? These big, hairy, audacious global goals get done by all of us doing our little specific Tuesday afternoon part to do that. But it can be tiring to make those Tuesday afternoon decisions because often they're not the norm, they're not the default, right? You buy the book on Amazon because that's the link everyone's sending around and it shows up in 36 hours or maybe 2 hours if you're in the city. But actually, I'm waiting to share the link so that you all can buy it via bookshop.org, right? And you might have to wait a few more days. Prices vary. Sometimes it's exactly the same. Sometimes you may pay $1 or $2 more. But you're supporting these local bookshops that have a voice in community and tend to be owned by individual families, are more likely to be owned by minority folks and women. And so it takes a little more time and energy. So we need some motivation and drive to do those things. which is where purpose comes in. It's really motivating when we connect those things to a North Star, to a reason that we're doing them, to the why, if you've done work with Simon Sinek and that school of thought, right? It gives us a reason to get up and do the thing, make the breakfast, take the extra click to get to bookshop.org. So this is kind of the magic that underlies purposeful leadership, purposeful living. It's about taking the nanoseconds, the 5-minute breaks at the end of the day or the week to really think about what we've done and the impact it had and why that matters to us. Anybody thinking if this is lighting any light bulbs about a time when you've done this and not really known what you were doing, drop that in the chat. Or if it's raising questions about like, okay, but how do I actually do this? Which again is literally as simple as a moment looking at your to-do list and thinking, what is my purpose in all of these tasks? Or asking colleagues in a meeting or one-on-one, 60 seconds, let's open with why we're doing this meeting, right? It really can be that simple. But drop any insights or questions into the chat. As I move on, I'll try to catch those. And so this is the impact dashboard. Super simple, super intuitive, I hope is what you'll find. Again, it has been the result of 12 years now of work with people like you all, primarily private sector, many kind of large corporate, but an array of backgrounds, and how they can find purpose through work. And you'll see how that might be at work or it might be related to work. So we're going to go quickly through this and then get into a little brainstorm. So jump with me here and then knowing that there's going to be a prompt for you to think about it in just a moment. So on the bottom, the foundation, intentionally done so, is the self, is central to all of this, right? It's the overused metaphor of the oxygen mask on the plane, right? When there's turbulence or gosh forbid something worse, we have to put our mask on first to make sure that we're breathing and thinking clearly before we can help anybody sitting around us. And so this is what you eat, where you sleep and how, what other practices you have to keep yourself mindful, whether that's cooking or running or Sudoku or whatever it might be that keeps you sane and grounded. And then surrounding that is family and friends and what we do for those people in our lives, right? Same, like cooking for them, being the shoulder they cry on, cheering for them when they're in a hard moment. All of these things have impact, right? And I think this below the fold gets less attention and credit from ourselves and from society than it is worth, because actually this is a really powerful way to have impact and be purposeful in our lives. Secondly is more of the above the fold. This is where we traditionally think more about wanting that purpose, wanting to have that impact. And so also important. The job is central because many of us will spend most of our waking hours or a plurality of our waking hours at work doing a thing. So this is the very specific tasks and roles and responsibilities that you get paid or somehow compensated for. And I separate that from your workplace, right? So you can think of your job as the bullets in your job description, whereas your workplace impacts are things like helping with recruiting, even though you're not a recruiter, or being on a green committee or an environmental sustainability committee that has nothing to do with your role, but is something you care about. Employee resource groups can be another way to get involved with impact at the workplace level, separate from your direct responsibility. Third, we look to community. This is volunteering, board memberships, informal support, showing up to a community fair to help liven those social ties. Those are all things that happen in your community. And then finally, money, right? And so often as business school students, we might think most of our investments, and absolutely, it is a brave, new, exciting world in terms of the way that you can align your investments, whether that's $1,000 or $10,000 or a much larger sum, you really can start to align those with your values. So that is an option. And you can make donations, again, small to medium to huge, all can have an impact if done consciously and tied a purpose if you're making that meaning out of them. And then finally, just what you buy. We all buy things, and whether we buy paper towels from a global conglomerate or whether we buy them from Seventh Generation, which is an externally audited and certified B Corporation, that makes a difference, right? If we make meaning of it and decide to care about the marginal 60 cents extra that we're spending, or the intent to go to the grocery store and get that thing, can be something that we make meaning of to ladder up to our purpose. So that's the impact dashboard. I see a comment that I'll check in with before we do this brainstorm. I don't end up prioritizing the purpose piece all the time. Liv, you are in good company. I want to, but I let busy get in the way. 1000%. All of us do. Welcome to the world of work, especially in the US, and especially if you're in New York still. Yeah, it's a habit. Exactly right. I have a whole worksheet on purposeful habits, and you have to start small with that, right? Set yourself up for success. Think about, gosh, you know what? Every time I brush my teeth, hopefully you're doing that twice a day, if your dentist speaking. Every time I brush my teeth, I'm just going to have a quick brainstorm think about what I'm looking at for today and the impact it's going to have and why that's meaningful to me, right? You should be brushing your teeth for 2 minutes instead of singing happy birthday. Do a quick scan through the 6 spheres, or pick one sphere for a week and really go deep, whatever it might be, right? But it is not rocket science. Don't try to think about, it's not about, how much do I need to save so I can quit and go work for the Peace Corps and find purpose. It is here, now, today, available to you. Thank you for the question. So a quick guided brainstorm before we get into those groups. I want you to think about someone else. So this could be a boss, this could be a study group mate, it could be a classmate from back in the day. Think about something that a person did, could be a stranger, right? Somebody who smiled on the street or picked up your wallet that you dropped and got it back to you. Think about a very specific thing they did. They asked you to speak up in a meeting, they helped you with a task, right? Truly anything, personal, professional. And just really take 60 seconds to play that through, right? What did they do? What happened as a result in general? And then how did that impact you? And if you were sitting in front of them today, what would you say back to make meaning for them, right? See that thing they did and say, hey, you asking me to speak up in that meeting was a massive confidence boost because I've done a lot of work on this, but I'm always a bit hesitant as the newest hire. And ever since you asked me to speak up, I've had more confidence in meetings going forward, for example. So I'm going to be quiet for 60 seconds and let you do that same exercise. What did someone do? Why did it matter to you? And what would you say to them? Ten more seconds to thank them, point out their impact on you. And of course, if anyone's inclined to share their little tidbit, please drop that in the chat, but no pressure. Otherwise, just kind of hold it and treasure it for yourself. So I ask you to think about someone else because I think it's a lot easier. We're much more generous with other people. So I want you all to recognize that probably whatever that thing was you just thought about, you have done similar things for other people, probably multiple times a day for as many days as you've been alive on this earth. Maybe not some days when you were sick, you were just in a bad mood, you were super stressed, and you weren't moving through the world as you like to do. But in general, right, you're picking up something someone lost, you're pouring water for somebody, you're asking someone actually how they are, right? There are little things that you're doing. And so can you be that voice for yourself in this brainstorm we're going to do next, as you think about what other people would say to you to help you make meaning of all these things that it's easy for us to just brush aside as anyone would do it, or it's just the right thing, right? But actually having thought about it from your own perspective, it means something to them as well. So final piece that I added, actually hearing your survey results, that I just want to drop here. It's a little bit of a non sequitur, but I found it to be really valuable for MBAs and business school students. So sorry, a quick parenthetical that I think will be helpful. you have about 1,000,000 choices in the career process that you're going through or about to go through. But there's one that I think is really foundational that again has just helped orient people's thinking who really want to find purpose in an MBA career. The choice is this. You can find one of these new B Corps or purpose-driven companies or, Unilever or Patagonia or, these companies that just scream purpose. And you can get a normal role in there, right? You can be on the accounting team, you can be on the marketing team, but presumably because this company is so wholly, explicitly from the top down and bottom up purpose-driven, you're going to feel that purpose every day. Plan A. Plan B is to find a normal company, right? So one of any of the companies that doesn't really wave its hand and have things written about it as being purpose-driven, and find an impact or purpose role within that, whether that's sustainability or CSR or purpose, right? There is now this whole new world of like chief purpose officers some places. HR and leadership can be sort of an quite implicit, but often purposeful role because of the way you're charged with helping people. And so this framing, I think we've seen just really help orient to just get clear. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad. These options are not nearly as neat as I'm presenting them here with these geographic shapes. If you talk to people at a lot of purpose-driven companies, you'll hear that it's a lot more complex and sometimes messy behind the scenes. And similarly, purpose roles at normal companies may not deliver all that. And actually, normal roles like supply chain can actually end up being deeply focused on diversity in the supply chain, for example, and thus be really impacty, even though they don't really say much about that in the job description. So just a framing that I offer, because I think it's, again, I like frameworks too, and I think this is a helpful one to break out your choices. Back to our regularly scheduled programming, we're going to play with this dashboard now in small groups. So here are the questions. I'm going to drop these into chat. And Matthew, now I see your story. And I worked in news as a producer who would invite me into the room and walk me through. Cool. Yeah. Right. Like so simple. Literally invite someone into the room. And even if I was talking with a friend the other day about being silent and off video in a Zoom room as a way to have this kind of access in a slightly weird offline world or online world. So powerful in development, even in a fast-paced environment. So thank you so much for calling that out, Matthew. I think that's a brilliant example that you all will be well placed to do. So here are some of the questions. If you want to copy paste those onto your desktop or something, I'm going to have Shirley in just a moment break us out into groups of 3, 4, 5 people. And I think we have, let's call it 10 minutes to do this. We'll come back at about 1:17 so that we can debrief and close. And what we're trying to get to with all of this is one small specific habit, just like you all asked for in some of your surveys. And per Liv's point about getting busy and finding those specific habits, that's our goal. So a lot to talk about here, more than you could possibly do in 10 minutes. But start with this notion of what's meaningful in a job, current or past, that you actually hadn't thought about. Or option 2, are there some other spheres that actually your job does enable, and you could sort of connect the dots that way. So Shirley, go ahead and send us off into discussion rooms. And folks, do the best you can with the time. Just not much. Welcome back. Hopefully we cut you off in the middle of a really profound sentence. That's how we like to run breakout groups. But as we close, key takeaway, anything that you want to share with the bigger group, just drop it in the chat. Or if you're inspired, I would love to hear it live. Feel free to unmute and kind of share. What did that reveal? What did you learn?
Hi, Nell, it's Antoinette.
Antoinette.
I'm happy to share, actually. So the two women that we just actually broke away into, I think we had a really, really good conversation, and they might not have given themselves the kudos and the confidence that they should already have. You know, one was a CEO of a company, and another one is in the burgeoning space of technology, and they both sounded very accomplished, and even in just the 2 minutes that we were speaking. And at the same time, of course, we are all decided to take an hour out of our day to be with you, because we're trying to find some kind of purpose and to articulate it better. And I think maybe we each maybe might have already what we need to, and maybe speaking to you triggers some things that we can take away and be actionable on, hopefully.
Awesome. So I love hearing that, because like the irony of this work is like the people who take an hour out, it's not because you all otherwise were going to be like eating bonbons or like burning carbon or like posting misogynistic messages on Facebook, right? Like you were going to be contributing in all of the ways you do as CEOs and parents and tech analysts, right? And instead you're here trying to do even more. So I'm not saying that there isn't always more we can be learning about. Can I compost at home? Or how do I learn to really be anti-racist and an ally in my workplace? Like, yes, there's always more. And it's tiring and there's a lot, and you're already doing a pretty darn good job of being a human or a colleague. And so that kind of like sigh of relief, I find, is a way more potent place to learn and grow and do more than the insecurity or the lack of confidence or the self frustration or disrespect that we can get into sometimes. So awesome. And to those two women who were Antoinette's buddies, yeah, like just a little tiny pat on the back. It's not going to make you soft or lazy, I promise. No one's going to judge you, but just take that credit. I think that's one of the most fun outcomes that I see from this dashboard when people work with it, is that like, oh yeah, you know what? I am really thoughtful about the lunch I pack for my kids. Like, good for me. And if you're not, no shame. Just like that's where some people get to find. And if you're not, maybe that is something you want to do that you're like, oh, that would feel really good. And I could do it on Sunday in an hour of pre-planning and shopping. It wouldn't be that bad. So whatever that thing is, in whatever sphere, this is all about like continuous improvement, 1% a day, not shaming or guilt or overwhelm. So well teed up. We are friends, but I swear she wasn't a plant. That was a very organic share.
That's right. Thanks, Nell.
Thank you. What else? And questions are also fair game. The second point, if there's something that's unclear that you want to hear live, I'm super happy to address that via chat or via voice, as you prefer.
I'm happy to go.
Please.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm James. I work at the CMC. I head up the EMBA advising team. I don't think we worked together before, but
Awesome.
was really excited to see you here. Yeah, I had a good conversation with Jill and Makiko, and I think something that really stuck with me when Joe said that he works in real estate, and to get close, he wants to get closer and talk more to the tenants to really feel the impact they're making. And I think no matter what we do, if we make intention to get closer to the point of impact, it will really inspire us. Like, and for me, like one of the habit that I'm taking away is, so I'm running a very purposeful role, like coaching, leadership, and life for living, which I love to do. But one thing I want to try to do is like use the gratitude and metta meditation you used earlier, and really focus on my client. Think about what makes me fall in love with my client, to know their purpose, what they're trying to do in this world, and use that as a ritual before I go into a session.
So gorgeous. I love that. I love that. And my next question is going to be if people want to get ahead of it to share that one purpose, that one habit in the chat. So James, thank you for kicking us off with that. It is so helpful. I know a lot of people said, I want to come away with one thing. So that's a beautiful one, which could be used by a lot of us, right? As you head into one-on-ones with a direct report, as you head into job interviews, can I spend 60 seconds breathing and just thinking about this other human that I'm going to interact with? I don't know that research as well. If anyone does, drop it in. There is research that I know broadly that kind of visualization, some of it is from sports, but some of it is from a more professional setting, comes out, right? It's implicitly felt by the other person just by doing that work in your neurology first of thinking about them and then showing up to the conversation. Not hard to imagine if you think about that, but really cool that neuroscience proves it. So yeah, start dropping your habits in. I see a really juicy one from Lindsay that I'm going to address because yes, you are not alone. I feel like following purpose and being well paid are trade-offs. I can't have both at the same time. I'd love to get your thoughts. Any data? So the first thing I'll say is that data here is pretty elusive. The data that exists is like, are nonprofit salaries lower than corporate? And the answer is like, yep, they are. So if you're thinking of purpose in that way of like, if I go into the nonprofit sector, I'll have purpose, that would be instructive. My story is actually that I left the nonprofit sector to find purpose. I realized that to me, the kind of change that I wanted to be making and the intersection with my skills and what I'm best positioned to do and what I'm most energized by doing is not in the non-for-profit space. And so, I think that dichotomy is really unhelpful, especially in today's economy, right? This book and this framework to me is all about the fact that whether you're a bagel maker or an investment banker or an entertainment lawyer or a tech analyst, you can absolutely do your 1/9 billionth of the impact that we need you to do, right? Like, in fact, we don't need everyone to be nurses or Peace Corps workers, because that would be really imbalanced. Like, who would do the deals? Who would make the bagels, right? We need a balance. And so purpose needs to be separated from the sector in which you're working. Point number one. Point number two, yeah, there are trade-offs, absolutely. They are not as linear in my experience and the people that I've worked with as saying money versus impact and thus purpose. There is a problem that our economy has gotten off the rails and has become a very extractive form of capitalism. And so there are a lot of things out there happening that are extractive and so create an imbalanced amount of financial capital for the value that they're creating and the negative impact that they're creating. And so that enables salaries that are also disproportionate, right? Higher compared to activities that are more aligned, more not extractive, but additive in terms of creating value and capturing some of that value in fair balance. And so there's a delta right above what the fair value created is. Now this extractive value is sometimes, not always, but is sometimes distributed in the form of salary. Often it's just held by owners, but sometimes it's distributed as salary, and that creates salaries that are unreasonably or extractively, let's say, inflated. So yes, that can be a little bit of a thing, right? If you have a purpose that has certain values, that means you're not going to be part of that extractive economy. There will be a rebalancing. There needs to be a rebalancing of expectations. There are a lot of things that pay very fairly and even abundantly that I have seen people be deeply purpose aligned doing. So whether that's, we work a lot with Smucker, which is a company that creates Jif, you probably know, and jelly and dog treats and cat food, right? Very mundane things. And are there things that Smucker could be doing better from an environmental point of view, from a human point of view? Like 9,000 times, yes, I've seen it. And so you have to decide. And many of the people who I know there are deeply faith driven, are deeply values aligned, and are very connected to the good that they're doing in those roles, like making uncomplicated meals for moms, right? And are some of those uncomplicated meals a little higher in sugar than we would ideally like? Probably. And are they yet fully organic wheat? No. Are they thinking about that? Yeah, they're trying. They're starting to try. So it's all about just finding your balance, right? And I have a whole other series of conversations and tools about that form of impact that you want, and whether you want to be in a big scale but less dramatic impact, whether you want to have dramatic game-changing impact, even if it's a lot smaller scale. There's always going to be trade-offs. Money is one of them, but I encourage you to think more critically about time versus money. What are they buying from me, and is that actually worth it? And a more comprehensive picture of benefits, including values alignment, which is a real health benefit because it reduces stress, anxiety, and actually heart disease and dementia later on, to do work that is values aligned. So money is a thing. It's really important to think about, but I think it's not as black and white as we tend to think. Matthew, your point is great. There are definitely for-profit companies having an impact. It's important for Smucker to get to use organic wheat. You know, I don't know when they'll get there or if they'll get there, but that would really change our agricultural system if they did. So anyhow, that's a whole nother hour that we don't have for today. We're at time. I just want to share really quickly a cute dog who was to signify questions that you might still have. Feel free to send those to me by email after, and enjoy the cute dog. And then some tips. Just practice this, play with it, as Antoinette did for the two folks in her group. As you go forward today, is there something you can point out to someone and say, hey, the fact that you did that really meant a lot. Thanks. Might feel a little teeny bit goofy, but I promise the surprise and smile that you create will be worth it. Similarly, tell someone else about this and ask them how they think about it. And then if you really want to go deep, coming soon to bookshop.org is a 400-page book about this framework and all of the stories and theories behind it, and a companion playbook. So back to third grade, pencil and paper, 8.5 by 11 physical thing that you can work through for weeks or months of your life to really integrate this and come up with some of those habits more thoughtfully than today. Lindsay, you're welcome. James, that's a great point. I love that. And thank you, Shirley and Olivia. This was great.
Okay, thank you so much, Nell. This was so helpful. I hope everyone enjoyed our little lunch workshop. We will be sending out an email with a survey so we can get your feedback to improve upon our programming and share it with Nell, who we hope to have again in the future. And just as you learned all about her impact framework today, please know that we will also be giving out a copy of the book once it becomes available to anyone who fills out the survey. So a little extra incentive to do so. But thank you, Nell. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of our students and alums and staff across the B-School and Law School join us today. We hope you have a great rest of your day. And please know you are making an impact one way or another. All right, thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Have good afternoons.